Hello, and welcome to Ben and Curt Till It Hurts, the culture cast caught at the crossroads of curation and masturbation. My name's Ben.
And I'm Curt.
And this week, we deserve a break.
It's finally over.
It has been one hell of a Texarcism month.
The weird thing for me about recording today is because we're recording on November 1st. So, like, just last night was Halloween. Mm-hmm. So, like, my whole month was just packed with horror. And then I woke up today and I was just like, what do I do?
You went and got a pumpkin spice latte and was like, well, fall has fallen.
Yeah. I got home from work and I was going to, like, pop a movie in while I was cleaning up and getting ready. And I was like, oh, man, I don't have to watch anything scary. And I was like, well, I guess I'll watch Half-Baked then. Like, I was like, I don't remember what it's like to watch a fun movie, a funny movie. Yeah. How do you feel? How do you feel now that Texarcism and Halloween is over?
I feel happy that we did Texarcism month. I am glad to have had that experience. I am also glad that it's over.
Yeah.
As we discussed a little bit before the podcast regarding my feelings about Halloween, I kind of forgot about Halloween. I live in an apartment complex. There are kids all over the place, but just none of them knocked on my door, or I just wrote it off as like a nothing occurrence.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had a shitload of trick or treaters. I like broke my record. I don't know if you saw that on Facebook.
No, I didn't.
But I live on Main Street of the town that I live in, and I had 171 trick-or-treaters, which is like way more than I've ever had.
They're all listening to the cast, man.
Yeah.
They're all coming to it's
Good job,
a landmark.
Guys. You know what? For next year, a lot of kids this year had like gloves and shit on. They couldn't, like, with claws and stuff, and they couldn't even get candy. Don't do that next year.
It goes against the spirit of it.
You need... My house is a house where you grab a handful of candy. Mm-hmm. Your parents say, just one, and then I give them a really fucking angry look, and then I take a handful of candy and throw it in your bag.
Did you hear about that guy who, a Lewiston man, did something he called, like, the Giant Candy Bar Day or something?
Yeah.
Peter Gagnon, something?
Geiger.
Peter Geiger.
Yeah.
Yeah, you go to his house, and he'll give you three large candy bars. It was like 1,500 people went.
Yeah.
You had to say a secret password.
Yep. That's, that guy, the only reason I know his last name is Geiger is because the school that's, like, next to his house is named after him, because he donated a ton of money towards the construction of the school. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Seems like a nice guy.
Interesting stuff. He's kind of fucking up the Curt for the rest of us, though.
You know, though, don't get me wrong. If, like, 1,500 people came there, then he's doing all right. But a lot of people were talking about it today, and they were like, yeah, not really worth standing in line for a half hour.
I could have just gone and bought 3 candy bars. They're not that expensive. I would have spent $3. It's fine.
Yeah. Way quicker than standing in line.
They're probably cheaper today, also. I could have just waited a day.
Could have got 5 for the price of the 3.
Yeah.
So, I don't really know what to do with our lives now. I'm kind of just like...
What are your... Now that we've had some time to reflect, what are your reflections on Texarcism?
I'm glad we did it, and I enjoyed... I'm glad I had not seen most of the movies before. I think if we had gone that hard on a series... of movies that quality, if we had seen them in the past.
I don't watch bad movies, Curtis. I don't watch them on purpose.
Yeah.
This is why the podcast is fun, because I get to watch bad movies now.
So I'm glad we did it, and I definitely think that Texarcism will live on in some way, shape, or form.
Are some of those movies the worst pieces of media that we've had to interact with?
Oh, man.
For the purposes of this podcast?
I think The Next Generation was one of the worst things we've encountered here.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
The only thing that I can think of that may be worse, and it almost doesn't even count, in our Animal Crossing episode, I spent about half that episode talking about Lil Yachty's new album. And that was about as bad.
Yeah, I think those two things are about on a level. I actually kind of like both of those things.
Yeah,
is the weird part. No. Yeah, I think Exorcist: The Beginning is the single worst movie or or piece of culture that I've had to interact with on this episode or on this whole series of podcasts. Yeah, that was pretty bleak. And it's going to be interesting to see if anything can break through that lower barrier, that bottom of the barrel that I think we've set.
That'll have to be like every December on Ben and Curt Till It Hurts.
Yeah, what's the worst thing we touched this year?
The best and worst things we've consumed this year.
Yeah, what's the worst shit we've covered?
We decided to take a break this week, kind of.
Yeah,
no
sort
homework
of.
for this week.
We know you all listen for our shining personalities.
Yeah.
We wanted to give you a taste of that again.
My great robot voice. And so I think this, the first episode of every month, now that we're doing these weekly, is going to be kind of dedicated towards just kind of like a wrap-up of the previous month of things we've enjoyed that we didn't really get a chance to talk about on the podcast.
Yeah, because we've been talking about fucking Exorcist movies.
Yeah. I think, that was your idea, Ben, and I think that it was a good idea because we do spend, especially when you're playing a game or something, there are many weeks of like, well, still playing this.
Yeah, still doing it. Fucking Nier Automata, 5 weeks in a row, still playing it. Yeah, I played it again. Yeah. Still playing it.
For me too, but since we've decided not to do it every week, and it's been about the same. If it isn't scary movies, it's been Wolfenstein this month, so I think it's a good call to.
Yeah. And I'm gonna take it a little farther. I'm gonna say I don't think we should attach it to months. I think we should do it between big series.
Okay, that's fair.
That's kind of where I lean because I don't want to constrain us. I want to unconstrain us as much as possible. Yep. I want to be fucking free flying like the Doors with no base, man. All right, whoa. No structure. I want to eliminate the categories as much as possible. I want to embrace unity, and I want to embrace togetherness. All right, get rid of the categories.
I like it.
Yeah.
That's the good thing about not really having any fans, is that if we don't have fans, we don't have sponsors, which means we can do whatever we want. It doesn't matter.
It's not your show.
Yeah.
It's our show.
I don't wake up and think, what does our one listener want to hear out of this show? I think about, man, I haven't watched Clerks in a while.
And I'm glad about that. Clerks is fine. Clerks
it's all right. I think I was a little too hard on it.
Yeah, well, we watched that VHS, that Scanlines, that H-Bomber Guy Scanlines YouTube video since then, and like that kind of turned me around on Kevin Smith's movies. It's not about the movies themselves, it's about the environment in which you watch them. If you're trying to watch them and pay attention to everything that's happening, you're probably going to have a pretty bad time. If you watch it as like a weird episode of television, I'm putting this on while I'm cooking, or I'm putting this on while I'm doing laundry, or something like that. Just pretend it just showed up on TV. Yeah. And they're like, oh, I'm not totally invested in this. I haven't built my day around this, certainly, which I did with fucking Clerks, and I think I did with Mallrats, too. It was like I'd watch those movies after I came home from work. But yeah, I think that's kind of why I've turned around on them a little bit.
I've been having some good experiences with VHS tapes this month, so I think that turned me around on it a little bit, too.
Yeah. Well, tell me about your experiences with VHS tapes.
Well, a lot of times, I have a pretty good amount of VHS tapes, and usually I will watch them while I'm up in my studio, because we don't have a VCR downstairs, so I only watch them when I'm up here. And I have become kind of fascinated with this, like... In this case, it's VHS tapes, but it's kind of like a weird thing that I'm super into. Like, I get really excited about... How should I say this?
So you're having a lot of trouble articulating this, and I'm interested in what it's going to be. I like to put my willy in, though.
Yeah. As far as, like, technology goes, I get really excited about the most advanced piece of technology that gets made before a huge breakthrough happens. So, like, I get super excited about ridiculous 300 CD stereo systems, or, like, just the weird, like, the biggest, like, tape decks and stuff before, like, MP3 players came.
Right, like, some company invested $1 billion into making this crazy thing that'll, like, put your tapes in for you and take them out and rewind them and store them back on a shelf, and that's like, oh, cool.
Yeah, like a month later.
CDs now is what we like.
So I started when I watched Psycho as part of my 31 Days of Horror, and it was from I want to say like maybe like the early 2000s when like VHS was like as cool as it was gonna get before DVD really took over, and all these like Universal, I believe Psycho is Universal.
I have no idea.
I don't know. But a lot of VHS tapes were really trying to do the things that were going to happen on DVD, but it's all on a tape. So like I popped in this copy of Psycho, and there's like a 20-minute featurette before Psycho, and then Psycho, and then there's a bunch of like special features and deleted scenes at the end of it. And it all turns into this like 3-hour tape where you're just like, boy, this would all be really cool on a fucking DVD.
If I could choose which ones to watch and when.
I really like this featurette, but I was kind of hoping to watch the movie first. But it's cool though, because they knew that would be the medium for which they had to like show it to people. So they made this whole featurette about Psycho with like Alfred Hitchcock like walking around the set and talking about things, but deliberately not giving any spoilers away because he knew it was going, they knew it would be on the tape.
It's like the introduction to a book. It's like, someone wrote this introduction in 1984 and now, you're reading it, and what's 1984 like? You're getting an idea about it. But...
And I just find that pretty fascinating. So I've been kind of like just binging on some of my VHS tapes and really enjoying the trailers for like the Universal 25th anniversary release of American Graffiti.
God, I love those trailers, man.
I know.
God, I love those trailers.
It's so good. It gets me hyped up about movies I don't even want to watch because I've seen them 40 times.
Yeah.
And it just still works. So that was my VHS tape rant.
Nice. Nice.
So overall, aside from Texorcism, what have you been getting into?
What have I been doing
for the month of October?
Let me pull up my notes because I've been doing some things, but I want to make sure I don't miss anything. The biggest thing was actually something that I've mentioned on the show already, which is a video game called Prey. I have not finished it, but I am loving it. It's do you know about like the immersive sim genre of games?
I don't know.
So like System Shock is one.
Nope.
BioShock is kind of one.
I'm familiar with BioShock.
Deus Ex is another one. They're games where it's not about a linear experience where you're presented with a series of challenges. It's more like they create a challenging environment and then give you a set of tools to handle the environment. For instance, in Deus Ex, you've got like the classic opening level of Deus Ex is just the Liberty Island. You've got the Statue of Liberty. There's a terrorist holding hostages at the top of it. There are guards posted all around it. And you, as Agent fucking J.C. Denton or whatever his name is, his crazy cyberpunk name is, you as the agent have a set of tools to use. You can dispatch the guards, or you can sneak past the guards. You can, there are like 3 different paths you can take into the Statue of Liberty. It's all about being wide open and about presenting you with a lot of options as to what to do, so that you can kind of assess the risk of what you're planning to do, and then carry out your plan, and depending on how well you execute it, you're in a good state afterwards or a bad state afterwards. And that's like the whole game. But it's about... Prey is a really great example of one of these, because the level design is just tight as hell. Like it's interconnected in these crazy ways, and there are all these little alcoves hidden everywhere that you can spot if you're paying attention to the level. And the tools that they give you are crazy unique. So for instance, one of the guns that they give you is called the glue gun, and it shoots these like big sort of, they seem kind of like cement. You can shoot them at these enemies, and the enemies move really fast and erratically, but when you shoot them with the glue gun, it stops them. Like
Spider-Man.
Exactly like Spider-Man, or like the freeze beam from Metroid. It's a similar kind of situation. And they break out of it eventually, but if this is the path that you want to take in this particular combat encounter, you run up to them with a wrench, you smack them a couple times, and then they're down. Or let's say you don't want to fight these enemies. Let's say you want to sneak past them. In that case, you can use what's called your mimic power, where you can turn into any object.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And it starts out, you can become a coffee cup or whatever. You can become like a fucking laser printer or something. But as you get more and more powerful, you can start turning into like fully functioning turrets. Yeah, it's fucking crazy. It is crazy. But the set of tools that they give you makes you approach problems in a very creative way. And one of the things that I really love about it is that you have essentially as long as you want to think about all the tools that are available to you. You can pull up your weapon wheel, and it has all your powers on it, all your different guns and grenades on it, and you can just sit there and think.
See, I like that a lot.
I do too.
I think I consider it a flaw, and I understand the reason that games do this now, but I'm not a big fan of like the live action menu. And the first
Dead
time,
Space or Dark Souls style.
Yeah, the first time I experienced that was in Resident Evil 5, where a big part of Resident Evil 4 is like pausing and like organizing your items and stuff, and then in 5 your menu kind of pops up, but everything still happens. Mm-hmm. Actually, the same thing happens in Wolfenstein, where you're like trying to change weapons, and like you're being shot at, and you're like, that's realistic, but this fucking sucks. Like,
well, I think the point of that would be to make it so that you have to find a safe place before you can change out your weapons.
Yeah.
So usually I lean towards giving players more ability to pause the action and make choices, because choices are what it's all about, right? But in some cases, specifically in Dark Souls, the whole thing is designed around making it so that you never have that completely safe space. And there are safe spaces in the game. Like if you're at a bonfire, you pretty much know that you can spend as much time as you want, as long as you haven't like kited any enemies in there. You pretty much know that you can spend as long as you want shuffling through your inventory and selling things or converting things or upgrading your character or whatever you want to do. But when you're in an unknown space, I really love the feeling of like, fuck. Oh shit. I do not know what's going on. I don't know where I am. I'm not sure how to get back to where I was before, because like I fell off a ledge and ended up here or something, or like I fell down through a trap and now I'm just in this scary place. I don't know where any of the enemies are. I can't see anything, and I just need to survive this. I like the tension that comes with that.
I think I would say it definitely depends on the game. It's that if you're looking for that experience, that can be, I think that's really entertaining. But if, it was just weird for me in that time to...
Well, Resident Evil 5 is a bad game.
That's true. It is a very bad game.
It's a bad game for many reasons.
God, someday we're going to have to do our Resident Evil 5 episode.
Well, that's the thing. When we do our Resident Evil and Fallout paired up episode, we're going to go past Resident Evil 4 into Resident Evil's 5, maybe even 6.
Would that make me have to play 6 again?
Yes, it would.
I'm going to make you play Operation Raccoon City then.
This podcast gets really vindictive and fucking hateful. But yeah, that's about where I've been at with Prey. Have you looked up any stuff about Prey or anything?
I have not. I probably should have. That would have been a good friend and good co-host of a podcast.
Look it up. It's great. It's a great game. If you like first-person shooters, it's also beautiful, which doesn't hurt matters very much. It's by Arcane Studios, who have some incredible art directors going there. And yeah, Prey's just a really good game. What else is there? I have also been... Well, I watched Videodrome.
Yeah.
Yeah, which we talked about a little bit. That's an excellent film.
I need to see that.
Yeah, well, we'll do our Cronenberg series.
Oh, okay, for sure.
Right?
Yep.
So, you'll watch Videodrome at that point. Videodrome, 1983 film by David Cronenberg, starring James Woods, I think, who is not a particularly well-known actor. He did mostly TV work.
I was going to say, I mostly became familiar with him through Family Guy, where it was like a joke. He was like a joke that he wasn't that popular.
Yeah. Really?
Yeah.
Man, Family Guy fucking sucks.
The high school that they go to is James Woods High.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a pretty good joke. Videodrome is a great movie. It's like a mystery about this guy who runs this cable station, and he the way that he gets content for it is he and his pirate friend, not like a pirate like fucking sailing the high seas, but like a video pirate who like twists dials and pulls up unsuspecting video feeds. They pull them up, they look for the most extreme, grotesque shit they can find, and they record it, and then they air it on their station. So one day they pull up this signal for something that's really quite extreme and quite scary and blurs the line between fiction and reality in a way that's kind of off-putting. But when Max Wren sees this, he's like, oh, we need this on the station. So they record it, they put it on the station. And then, or I forget if whatever. Some shit happens after that, right? Yep. That's the inciting action. And yeah, we'll have to watch that movie. That is a fantastic movie. Great body horror in that movie. David Cronenberg just has that way about him.
I was gonna say
Wait a minute, Curtis. I'm remembering now.
Okay.
My wife Megan told me that you watched The Fly and were underwhelmed by it.
Oh shit.
Yeah. You didn't think I would hear about that, did you?
I thought that was a secret.
You thought you'd be able to hide that shit from me. You can't hide anything.
My wife and I keep no secrets.
None. And we both care very deeply about the same things.
Yeah, okay. So here's the thing.
Defend yourself. Defend your words and deeds.
I don't have much of a defense for it. I like The Fly. I really do. I think when I watched The Fly, I didn't really know what to expect. I mean, I knew a guy was going to turn into a fly.
Well, it's right in the title.
Yeah. They really, give it away.
They don't bury the lead.
But I think I expected it. I didn't expect it to be such a body horror film. I think I expected a little more to be going on plot-wise rather than this 2-hour journey of just watching a man go through disgusting body transformation.
It's not just that, Curtis. There's a love story. The Fly is at its heart a love story.
Maybe the first one.
What do you the
Vincent
old,
Price
the really old one?
Yeah.
No, David Cronenberg's The Fly is a love story. There are two characters in that movie. And the whole thing is about their relationship.
But that's not why we're there.
Yeah, it is. That's one of the main reasons I watched that movie is because of the relationship between them. Is because of the moment at the end when she has to kill him, but she knows that it's not really him anymore.
Spoilers.
It's a fly man.
There are no spoilers for movies from the 80s. Go fucking watch it.
Well, that's not the number one reason to watch that. The ending is not the reason to watch The Fly, because the ending, that whole movie has a sense of of inescapability, inevitability, hurtling inevitability, I would say. You're on a crash course towards the end of that movie, and it's all about the twists and turns that you're going to take along the way, the various grotesqueries that are going to be inflicted upon you through the course of that film. You didn't, what about The Fly Baby?
I don't remember The Fly Baby.
You don't remember when I believe it's a nightmare that she has. She gives birth to their child, and it's a fly. It's like a maggot.
Yeah, it sounds gross.
Fly baby.
Yeah.
Are you so The Fly to you came across as just gross for the sake of gross?
I wouldn't say necessarily that I found it was like a pointless, gross out film, but I think its place in horror culture or influential horror movies you need to see, I think it falls under gross body horror that, this is really gross.
I wouldn't say it's particularly influential. Well, I don't know if I would say it's influential. I would say it's important. I would say it's like a culmination of body horror.
Yeah.
It's one of the body horror movies from the undisputed champion of body horror, David Cronenberg. Is that the only Cronenberg film you've seen?
I don't even know, probably,
yeah.
But I don't know many of his movies.
Then this is going to be an interesting series that we're going to embark on at some point.
I'm into it.
Very interesting, Curtis.
I like learning. I like new things.
Anyway, I watched Videodrome. It's fucking awesome. You're going to love it. I also watched some Star Trek: The Next Generation. Yep.
Now, this is something I'm fascinated with.
Yeah?
I want to talk about this.
Okay, have you watched it?
I watched part of the very first episode.
Yeah?
And I decided that was not something that I could have in my life.
That's not the way you want to do it. The way you want to do it is you want to, as closely as possible, emulate the experience of oh shit, Star Wars is on, or no, fuck Star Wars. You want to emulate the experience of oh shit, Star Trek is on. I need to watch Star Trek. I don't care what episode it is, right? You want to pick a random episode. Would you tell someone watching The Twilight Zone that they need to watch every Twilight Zone episode in order?
I think that I don't know much about Star Trek, but I would say that is inherently different. But I don't know much about Star Trek.
Well, Star Trek came... Like, Star Trek was the late 80s. Star Trek was contemporary with Twin Peaks. And Twin Peaks was the first time that sort of sustained serial storytelling... That was a lot of sibilants in one sentence. That's fucking sucked. It was the first time that serial storytelling made its way to television other than soap operas. Mm-hmm. So TNG is kind of before that was a huge deal. That was before, say, Buffy the Vampire Slayer. It was like almost 10 years before Buffy the Vampire Slayer really sunk its teeth into the idea of, no pun intended.
I love that.
I know. This is just the fucking pun show now. Welcome to the pun show, everybody. TNG was before Buffy even started saying, like, hey, maybe we could make a really, really good TV show that's good for reasons other than the reasons Twin Peaks was good. Like, Twin Peaks takes all these soap opera tropes and reappropriates them into this, like, big, weird parody of soap operas, along with, like, a very earnest idealization of what it means to live in a small town, alongside this whole other fucking thing. I've been watching a little Twin Peaks too.
I'm having a hard time because I've never seen Buffy, Twin Peaks, or The Next
Generation, or any episode of any soap opera. Or
so theoretically, I agree with you, but I'm not making a very informed choice.
This is for the listeners, all right? This is just for them, the people who want to fucking listen to me ramble on about this shit. But anyway, my point is that Star Trek: The Next Generation does not depend on watching them all in order. It's not The Sopranos, right? Where each episode depends on knowledge from the last episode. It's certainly not Stranger Things, where there is literally nothing other than the serial continuity. There are no themes. There's no fucking interesting twists or turns in the plot. There's just nothing other than, yes, each of those events did lead logically from the event prior. Fuck Stranger Things. You cut that down part a little. Cut that part down a little. That got really loud.
That's all right.
I just get so mad about Stranger Things
because I fucking hate it so much.
Because I fucking hate it so much. Anyway, TNG is really good. Just go on Netflix. Just look through the episode list. Pick a random episode that the description sounds interesting on. Right? You want to kind of follow your nose on this a little bit. You want to be making predictions about what the episode's going to be about. You want to be making predictions about what the episode's going to be like. Like, what do you know some of the characters from Star Trek: The Next Generation?
I know Dr. Samuel Beckett from Quantum Leap.
You know, which one is he again?
I think he's the captain.
He's not Picard.
Oh no, I was thinking Enterprise.
Okay,
yeah,
talking about The Next Generation here, Curtis. Fucking Sam Beckett's not in this. No, Quantum Leap, very good show. Watch Star Trek: The Next Generation as though it's Quantum Leap. Quantum Leap, you don't need to watch every episode in order. They're very self-contained, right? TNG is a Quantum Leap style show, though I would say it's better than Quantum Leap, and that is coming from a fan of Quantum Leap.
Why the fuck haven't we done a Quantum Leap episode?
We're gonna do a whole Quantum Leap series. Eventually, when we feel ready for it, we're gonna do a Quantum Leap series, and we're gonna do a Twilight Zone series. Mm-hmm. All right, and maybe we do Twilight Zone season series. We don't want to do like the whole 5-season core set.
I think we can plan this out, but maybe we could each pick like our favorite 5 or 10 favorite Twilight Zone episodes.
That's a good idea.
And I think it'll say a little bit about ourselves.
Yeah,
we can.
Yeah, it'll be a little bit of a Rorschach test.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah. So okay, that's a good idea. We'll watch. Well, I don't know because I haven't watched every Twilight Zone episode. Right. At least I haven't watched them all with an eye towards thinking like, is this one of my favorites? So that's I think maybe we do one season at a time and we pick our favorite episodes from each season and then we talk about those episodes on the show. So we're not talking about every episode on the show, but we are watching every episode to pull from.
I like binging things.
Does that sound good?
Yeah, we'll have to gain access to all the seasons.
I thought they're all on Netflix.
Some of them are on Netflix.
Oh, really?
They're like weirdly I think like it's like 1, 2, 3, and 5.
I own a Twilight Zone box set of the first 5 seasons, so that's
perfect.
Taken care of. Yeah. What the fuck was I talking about? Star Trek: The Next Generation.
Star Trek.
You should try watching it.
I'll try again.
We watched a really good episode where where Riker takes part in an officer exchange program, and he ends up on a Klingon ship, and you learn all about the differences between like Klingon social structures, or rather Klingon Federation structures, and human slash standard. I guess I don't know what you would call it, because there's every type of Well, there's not every type of person. It's mostly humans, right? It's mostly the human social structures that dictate how, say, the Enterprise functions. What if Dr. Sam Beckett is actually on Star Trek: The Next Generation?
Do that to me, Ben.
Don't
do that to me.
Because it is the Enterprise.
Yeah.
Man, I don't know. It's really good. Riker ends up the fucking captain of a Klingon ship, just because it turns out as an officer on a Klingon ship, one of your duties is to try to kill your commanding officer if he seems to be not fulfilling his duties correctly.
I like it.
Yeah, because it's, and you get at the idea that no matter that despite the differences between Klingons and humans, each of them is able to function in isolation, but also each of them is able to learn things from each other.
Sounds like a good trapped in an elevator episode of.
Well, sort of. It goes back and forth.
Yeah.
It goes back and forth. Are there any good? There might be some good trapped in an elevator episodes of The Next Generation. I don't know. I haven't watched enough of it yet.
I'll have to check it out. I think I might physically be incapable of just picking random episodes, though. So.
No, you need to do it. You need to let go of the categories, Curtis. That's what I'm saying. We're embracing unity. We are embracing unity, and we're going to experience every episode of Star Trek: The Next Generation simultaneously. Because if you watch something in order, you depend too much upon categorization. Something like Next Generation. If you watch it in order, you depend too much. You're just looking around at all your. But Ben,
no,
the DVDs go over there.
I think there's a bug in here.
Yeah, it's been flying around. I've been noticing.
Terrifying.
I don't need to go on my whole Unity rant again, but my point is, you gotta let go, man. Live a little.
It's actually
open up to me.
It's
Curtis.
okay because when I structure episodes, I have like a 10 to 15 minute allotment for whatever you would like to rant about, whether it's nationalism or.
And then I just cut it out.
Yeah, but I'm actually saving them all.
Yes. For the first time I say, Kurt, I can't record this week, you're going to say, oh, don't worry, I have the secret episode.
I have an episode I've been building.
I have a compilation of all the racist, stupid political shit Ben has ever spewed.
I actually, I do have. This is nothing you need to be scared of, but I do have a secret collection of audio things that I save, and you're on it a little bit, so...
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Is there a plan to release that? Or?
Yeah, I do have plans for it. You're the first person I've told about it that's involved in it, though.
I like that response. Someone asks you, is there a plan for this? And you say, yes.
Yeah.
You don't go into like what the plan is, or is it going to involve my political career? Like, is this going to endanger my political career?
See, the thing is, if I say it, I actually have to do it. If it stays an idea,
yeah, no, don't say it on the podcast. Just say it later if you want to. I'm not. I'm excited to be part of the unsuspecting audience that this is going to be unleashed upon someday. That makes me feel very happy. I have one more thing. I have been listening to a record recently. It's a Beach Boys record, sort of.
Okay.
It's called Smile.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. How familiar are you with the Beach Boys?
Zero.
Okay. So the Beach Boys started out as this weird family band. It was like, it was Brian Wilson, Carl Wilson, Dennis Wilson. They were sort of the core trio. And then you had Al Jardine, who was, I think, a cousin, and Mike Love, who might have also been a cousin. And that's like the core 5 Beach Boys. Through, say, 1965, 1966, they're making mostly normal rock and roll music, right? Culminating in the release of Pet Sounds, one of the greatest albums of all time. Are you familiar with Pet Sounds?
I'm familiar with the name of it. I've never listened to it.
You know about it. So you've never listened to a Beach Boys album.
Correct.
Fascinating. We're gonna do
a Beach Boys episode.
Like a Beach Boys series. Pet Sounds is a beautiful album. Some of the best songwriting available. After Pet Sounds, Brian Wilson, I would say the lead songwriter of the Beach Boys, thought to himself, I'd really like to outdo Pet Sounds, right? He looked at what the Beatles were doing, and around that point, every Beatles album was starting to look pretty different, right? Yep. They started off with their initial, we're a rock band, we play rock music, And they extended into, say, Sgt. Pepper and Abbey Road and albums like that. Brian Wilson looked at what they were doing, and he decided to make what he referred to once as a teenage symphony to God.
Okay.
Right? So, Smile almost destroyed the Beach Boys. Brian Wilson wrote some pretty challenging music. It's like challenging music for today, much less 1966 when Brian Wilson wrote it and they recorded most of it. We're talking unusual song structures. We're talking crazy instruments. One song has slide whistle. Another song has, according to legend, there is definitely a song called Vegetables on it, about vegetables and loving vegetables. And according to legend, the sound of Paul McCartney chewing celery is used in the mix on that song. Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah. It's a great album. And it like tracks the development of American rock and roll music through the symphonic European music, through the music of the African slaves who brought some of their cultural traditions over to the United States, through the music of the Native Americans that were living here when we all decided to come over and start parceling the land up, and through the music of the Pacific Islanders, who we sort of ran into as a result of World War II and started living on their island, right?
Yeah.
And it takes all this music and it puts it in a big pot together, right? And it just like shows you different combinations of it. And along the way, lyrically speaking, you're exploring themes of American expansion, of course, the historical imperial expansion of America towards the West. You're exploring themes of love, just like pure love. What does it mean to be in love? What does it mean to feel love? And you're exploring themes of like just what it means to listen to music. So he wrote this album. They recorded it, as I mentioned, and then in the process of mixing it and doing like the final recordings after the whatever initial demos, there was an altercation. Not a physical altercation, but Mike Love became again, according to myth, there's a lot of myths around this album because it got shelved.
Oh, did it?
Yeah. Mike Love started questioning some of the lyrics that this poet Van Dyke Parks had written for it. He asked Van Dyke Parks, "What does this lyric mean?" And Van Dyke Parks was not able to provide a satisfactory answer. And eventually Van Dyke Parks just said, "I don't know what it means," right?
Yeah.
Which is, not unusual for lyricists to say, I would say. It's like, where do you get your inspiration from? I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, it just shows up. It's just what I was thinking about, so I wrote about it. After this altercation, the album gets shelved. All the tapes just get put in a fucking vault, right? Almost 40 years later, 2004, Brian Wilson, who had been driven almost insane by this process, that's kind of an overstatement. He was still sane enough to recognize that in order to save the relationships with his bandmates, he needed to stop the project. It wasn't like someone forced it upon him.
This album made him look into the void.
It made him look into the void, exactly. Brian Wilson saw too much, too clearly, and he was not able to process what he saw fully. But he has said, he writes in the liner notes for this final release of Smile that I've been listening to, he writes that for those 40 years, the music that was deepest in his soul was not able to be released into the world.
Wow.
Yeah. So, and that maintained. After fucking Smile, the Beach Boys went on to make songs like Kokomo, right?
Oh, okay.
Fucking terrible songs. I'm a little bit fond of Kokomo, but I'm also a little bit fond of Mike Love. I still don't like him, but like I just have a little bit of fond, just enough, more than for fucking Stranger Things, certainly. I'm sorry,
We're just gonna keep bringing. We're just gonna weave in and out of Stranger Things.
My mind just goes back to Stranger Things over and over again. I'm sorry I'm monologuing so much. I swear I'm getting to the end of it.
No, it's fine. This is what this episode's for. We're just hanging out.
Yeah, I guess that's true. We're talking about different things. We're just talking about the things we've been thinking about.
I'll have my turn.
You will. So this music stays shelved for 40 years. In 2004, Brian Wilson starts playing some of the songs live with his new band, right? Some of the songs off Smile. And people love it. people were like, holy shit, these songs are amazing, because they are amazing. And some of the songs had made their way in different forms to other Beach Boys albums that came afterwards, but they always feel kind of castrated.
Yeah.
There's always something missing. And that might just be because, I don't know, I only listened to them after listening to Smile, so I have an idea of what like the full-blown thing actually sounds like. What it's supposed to sound like. So like the version of Heroes and Villains that they ended up releasing just sounds incomplete. Mm-hmm. But he's like, wow, people are reacting really well to these songs. Fast forward 7 years after 2004 up to 2011, and a group of editors at the company who owned the original tapes has gone back into the vault, pulled the tapes out, and edited them together.
Okay.
So the Smile Sessions is the album that I've been listening to, and the Smile Sessions is the original recordings. I think all the original recordings. So audio quality is a bit variable at times. You have some songs that are complete, that sound like full-blown songs, and you have other songs that are fragments or that clearly have demo recordings of vocals where like, Brian Wilson is delivering these vocals and he's also banging on a piano because this is just a demonstration of what the song is eventually going to sound like. But they edited it together and it's amazing.
Oh man, that's so intriguing to me.
And it was this like legendary album for almost half a century. People were like, man, I heard someone once listen to this album.
Yeah.
And then they just edited it together and released it in 2011, and it's not a disappointment at all. It's actually, in my opinion, it's as good as the myth told it to be. It's an incredible piece of music. It's an incredible work of songwriting. I'm sorry, I interrupted you there for a second, but that's my wrap up.
I'm gonna have to check it out. I'm always, there are sometimes it can be a lot of fun. Just work your way through the discography of an artist, and sometimes it can be there are different ways you can enjoy it. And I mean, with some of my favorite bands, like take AC/DC, every album sounds the same, but you're listening for like subtle differes.
Yeah, I've been listening to more AC/DC recently, and I take back the stuff I said about them all sounding the same. Well, like they're all in the same genre
structurally.
So in that way, they do all sound the same. But like the little it's about the little differences,
But I also, other bands like Black Sabbath that have gone through numerous lineup changes and different singers and different sounds and instrumentations. I really like working through those too, and kind of hearing the slow and sudden changes between sounds. I've always wanted to do it with the Beatles because I find it interesting, but I fucking hate the Beatles, so I just haven't. It sounds like it'll be like 8 hours of being fucking annoyed, so. You
got to try to find the fun.
Yeah.
And you got to understand the context that the Beatles existed in, and that gave me a bit of an appreciation for it, certainly.
So that, I think I'm going to check that out, which is usually, I'm usually so busy listening to new music that has been released that I fill in all the cracks with old things that I like. So it's uncommon for me to listen to something old that I haven't listened to.
I highly recommend giving the Smile Sessions a listen. It's on Spotify.
Oh, then easy. I'll do it.
Yeah. But yeah, that's everything. And before we get to your stuff, I really need to pee. So do you mind if we take a break?
Yeah, we will take a little break. I will pause this and we'll put a little music into it, and then it'll be a little natural break. We can do that. We're allowed to do that.
Yeah, we can have a break.
All right, we'll be back in a few minutes.
See ya.
We're back. Good stuff.
Feeling good.
Feeling good. I was supposed to mention this before we started, but I prompted us to start, and then I didn't want to interrupt you. So we kind of got some fan mail.
Oh, yep.
Kind of.
Okay. Is it Jake?
It maybe.
Hi, Jake.
I had put out
we
on
appreciate your listening.
The Instagram if anyone wanted to put any fan mail in or have anything read on the show, I would read it. The first one was on our Instagram. That it was on the picture of our Texorcist 3 episode. It says, "Heck yeah, totally Team Exorcist 3. Was a pleasant surprise when I rented it back in the day." From Jackalope 207.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, all right.
So wait, do we don't know who that is?
No, I think I know who it is.
Okay.
Next, Dear Ben, you're wrong on so many levels. Love, Jake the Thriller.
That is Jake. Yep. I could tell before you even said his name.
Yeah. And then, Dear Ben and Curt Till It Hurts, I hear you are looking for a replacement for Curt. I do have experience. Sincerely, Jake the Thriller. And then the last one, Dear Ben, your ability to view film in a very analytical way has helped you on your successful podcast. However, in only viewing film and shows in this way, I feel you have lost touch with the simple feeling of joy. It's sad, really, that a highly intelligent person as yourself can see something simple and not see it as just joyful entertainment anymore and feel the need to break it down to its core and shatter it for the rest of us. I say to you, stop it. Sincerely yours, Jake the Thriller.
Yep. Okay.
P.S.
I get to, again, I think he sent me that exact message via Facebook also.
Say, P.S. Christian Slater is just Jack Nicholson.
Yeah, and he sent me that one over Facebook also.
Okay.
Yep. And we had that conversation.
So thank you, Jackalope, and
fuck
Jake
you, Jake. No, Jake, I appreciate you, Jake.
Thank you for letting us know that this was a horrible idea, and we will never be doing it again. Anyway,
Jake, I have the courage of my convictions. I'm not going to say you're wrong about anything because I don't think you've made any claims.
Hard to stand by absolutely nothing.
Yes.
But I can tell you, Jake has been doing it for years.
He has a lot of experience.
So, yeah, that's it for that. I'm never going to ask for fan mail again.
Wait a couple of years.
Yeah.
As far as I know, the way this works is we need to put out between 50 and 100 episodes so that when people hear about the show,
right,
they look and they see like, oh, these guys clearly mean it.
Yeah.
So then also we'll probably be even better by that point.
I hope so.
I hope so too. We're still finding our feet.
Yeah, I like that though. You know, one of the things that I think we've done best is that we didn't do something once and then say like, well, that's the way we do it. You know, I like that what was the phrase? We're breaking categories.
We're breaking down the categories.
Categories on Ben and Curt till it hurts. We're doing it over and over again until it feels right.
Yep.
Love Ben and Curt. Yeah.
Good fan mail. Thanks for bringing that up.
Thanks, Jackalope and Jake the Thriller 3 times. So I guess that will allow us to get into my half of what's been going on for October. And honestly, mostly horror stuff. It was a pretty weird day, like I mentioned before, to wake up today and realize it was November and there was no more Halloween. And I mean, to put things into perspective, I clocked in 37 horror or Halloween related films last month.
Wow.
Yeah, pretty stupid. And usually I do 3-ish podcasts a month. We were doing bi-weekly, and then I would usually do 1 or 0 Black Gold podcasts. I think I did 12 in October.
Damn.
Most of them horror related because of Texorcism and Horror Hounds that I was doing on Black Gold. So really, this whole month has just been like basically like going to work, coming home, and then being like, do I have to record tonight or do I have to binge watch some horror movies tonight?
Just immersing yourself in a primordial terror soup.
And that was the whole month. There wasn't a lot of time for much else. In between that stuff, though, I did do a few things. Namely, I've been playing Wolfenstein, The New Order on Xbox One, which I feel like for most people is like, you know, it's a few years old, so no one's going to care anymore. But I've actually never played a Wolfenstein game before this. Similar to Far Cry, I saw the trailer for the new one, and I was like, that looks fucking rad. I gotta play one of the old ones. And I don't. How do you feel about first person shooters?
I like them when they're good.
Okay, that makes sense.
They're rarely good, but I do like them when they are good.
I have a hard time getting into them. Either I can't get into them, or I reach a point where like the reward isn't worth the challenge, and then I just like never finish it. But the Wolfenstein has been a little bit different. The only thing really that has kind of kept me on it is I think it has a really fascinating like plot, which I didn't know anything about the Wolfenstein games. Do you know much about what goes on in Wolfenstein?
I do.
Okay. So just I didn't realize that it took place in this like alternate, future US where Germany wins the Second World War. So in between these missions and gameplay that I think are kind of like meh, like I think I'm really tied down to this like fascinating story of the alternate reality of that it takes place in. So if you can turn on the History Channel and see those little documentaries about like that say that some Nazis were like exploring the occult, and I don't know the validity of any of that, but
the Nazis like any fascist order had a religious component to their political system, and the religious component to the Nazi political system had to do with reviving ancient pagan Germanic religious traditions. So this has made it, just because of the breadth of everything that they were involved in, even if they were involved in none of it particularly deeply, it allows you to imagine, like, oh, what if they actually were really into this thing that actually only was superficial for them? It was about promoting German identity, but what if you imagine that it was really about bringing the dead back to life?
Yeah, that's basically the world that Wolfenstein takes place in. The Germans discover technology so advanced that it seems like magic, and they invent super concrete that makes it so they're essentially invincible, and just stuff like that. The game takes place in 1960, but it's in an alternate reality, so it's kind of cool. Like with the technology that they've had, they made it to the moon a lot sooner than in the 1969 in our reality. So I'm really intrigued by that. I really like doing these like kind of terrorist missions, and then you see like the newspaper clippings in the next chapter
because you're an insurgent in this game.
Yes.
Right? Yeah. Whereas the original Wolfenstein games take place pretty much in World War II. So you are not an insurgent, you're a soldier. Whereas in this game, it sounds like the Nazis won, and now you get to be a soldier for the undefeated core of American values that still exists in the Nazi occupied future America. Yeah, and you get to be an insurgent. They would call you a terrorist. You would call yourself a freedom fighter.
Yes, and it's really cool. There's some really great writing in it. Not only does it take place in that that reality, but you will do something and to complete a mission, and then you'll see newspaper articles later on that talk about it, but you're seeing it through this fascist state, so they're downplaying or lying about the things that happen. Like there's one mission where you completely blow up a huge bridge that has a train that goes across it, and through the newspapers for the rest of the world, they talk about how there was an attempt, but it failed miserably because German engineering is so strong that there was no chance that anything or anyone could ever cause any damage to any construction made by Germans. Yeah. So I just think that's really fun.
Yeah. Real quick, can we just say the main character's name?
Yeah. What is it? I don't even remember.
BJ Blazkowicz.
Blazkowicz. Yeah.
BJ Blazkowicz, because the original Wolfenstein game was not meant to have a story. It was supposed to be a series of mazes that you just walked around and killed Nazis in, right? It was just fun. It was like the first real first-person shooter.
There is a mini game in New Order where you like fall asleep and you have a dream and you're like in an old Wolfenstein level.
Yeah, that's cool. I've seen some videos of that.
It's pretty fun. I do that like over and over again.
They made the graphics look incredible for those parts.
They really did.
Like the feeling of being in that game, but with the controls of a contemporary modern first person shooter it looks really interesting.
So I really honestly like the story is what's kind of keeping me on with it. I'm not a big fan of first-person shooters because being kind of like a gamer in general, I can pick up like an FPS game and just be pretty good at it. Mm-hmm. And they become puzzle games, which I don't like. It just becomes a part where like you have to survive this part and you die, and then you're like, all right, well, I'll save my shotgun ammo for that part, and then then I get past that, but then there's like this obstacle, so I'll hide in that room, and it just becomes a series of dying and then just like memorizing your pattern on how to get through.
You're actually selling this game to me right now. That sounds really cool. Did I ever tell you about one of my favorite games? One of my favorite moments in a game? I don't want to monologue. I'm pretty sure I talked for 15 straight minutes earlier this episode, so I don't want to monologue. It's a game called Call of Cthulhu: The Dark Corners of the Earth. Where and the part that I'm thinking of is a part it's taken almost exactly from one of H.P. Lovecraft's stories. You are in a hotel in Innsmouth, and people are coming to get you out of the hotel, and you need to follow an incredibly specific series of actions, or else the people will catch you. And I'm talking like, all right, I need to go through the door, then I need to turn around, I need to shut the door, I need to lock the bolt on the door, and then I need to push the dresser in front of the door, then I need to go out the window, I need to jump from this ledge to this ledge into this other building, through this building, through the door, close the door, bolt the door.
That scares me too much.
It's amazing. It's amazing. And you only solve it if you look it up, which I think I did when I was young, but then the second time I played it, I didn't remember it. It's such an incredibly specific series of mundane actions that who could memorize that. But it was a lot of fun trying to figure it out. Like, fuck, what do I keep getting to this point. It's the feeling that you get in like a really hard old game, like Castlevania, where it's like, all right, I get up to this point and then I just have no idea how to get past it. But every time I die, I go back to the beginning of the level. So I master the beginning of the level. I can do it in my sleep. It's the same thing like you've been talking about with speedruns. For me, it's that same joy of just, playing your instrument, as fucking stupid as it is. Yeah. It's like, it's the same feeling you get when you're playing a scale over and over again on the guitar, and suddenly you go from being able to do it at 40 beats per minute to being able to do it at 140 beats per minute, and you're like, wow, okay, I have a new skill. Even if that skill is just being able to get through this one part of this one game, I was faced with what seemed to be an insurmountable challenge, and I surmounted it. Anyway, sorry.
I was gonna say, you're selling me back on the game.
It sounds like a good game, and I want to play it.
The game is like gameplay wise is like broken up, kind of into like it'll alternate between levels of there'll be like a combat level and then a level that takes place in your like secret base. So your combat levels are your typical combat. You're trying to like figure out how to survive long enough to...
It's like arenas, right? So you enter a space, enemies are in the space, or enemies enter the space through another filter, through another tunnel, and you have a certain number of weapons that have certain effects, and you kill the enemies. Yeah. That's the most boring description of a first-person shooter I could possibly muster.
And I do...
What child would want to play that?
I do enjoy that there are times when you can sneak through an area and kill everyone without even being noticed, which I like a lot. And then there's some towards the end of the game, which I haven't beaten it yet, but I'm towards the end. It's pretty much just an onslaught of the hardest enemies, and you just hope you can, beat them all before it.
Because you know the tricks now, right?
Right.
Like you've faced enough of them. The same thing happens in Doom. Each enemy has such an incredibly specific little trick you can use, and they throw them all at you all at once.
So, I mean, it stays fun, and it's one of those things where it's a great game where when I get home from work, I can turn it on, play it for 20 minutes, and then just pause it and shut it off. And then when video games nowadays, when you turn it back on, it's right where you left it.
Yeah, I don't know how I feel about that. How do you feel about that?
Here's the thing. I think it allows for bigger and more developed games but I think it takes away from something, like, more so with me, like that. Say with Wolfenstein, I run through an area, I get the shit blown out of me, I'm right back at that room, and I can try again, and I fucking get annihilated again, and that next hour of gaming is me in that room trying to just make it through to the end of the hallway, and I like it because it allows for like mastery of that area, but it doesn't help you as much through the course of the whole game.
But you're still developing skills. Like the enemies that make it hard in that area, you're having to figure out new ways to use the tools given to you to defeat those enemies.
And I think it's a lot of give and take with that. Another thing that I first had this thought was with Fallout, where there's
Fallout 3 or Fallout New Vegas.
3. They're both the same though, but
well,
in this sense, okay. you can do whatever you want to any character in Fallout, because if you ever make the wrong choice, you just shut it off and you turn it back on, and it loads, it saves every time you enter a room or travel to a place.
Yeah, sure, that's true if you're a fucking chump. Fucking play permadeath, no save scumming, Curtis. Jesus.
Ugh. Jesus. Fallout is never a game that I would play permadeath on.
Really?
I don't even want to play survival on Fallout. I did it just to get the achievement, and I've never...
That sounds like quite an ordeal.
Yeah, it was pretty... I mean, if only for the fact that it takes like 30 hours to beat that game, like in the bare minimum. Like, that's a time commitment just for an achievement.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. I've heard about a pretty cool sounding permadeath run of Fallout New Vegas, and the thing that's cool about that game is that you don't have to beat it to have a satisfying experience with it. You could just have that be the story of your courier. It's like, yeah, I woke up, I went my merry way, I did a couple quests for the NCR, and then I got killed by a fucking Deathclaw. Yeah. And that was my character's story.
There's a lot of people in the wasteland. They're not all heroes.
Exactly.
So, I mean, that's about it. The big thing now, though, which it doesn't make much sense to talk about this before I do it, but I'm just so excited at the opportunities now that how October is over. I just downloaded for like an October sale an indie game called Feel the Snow, which I'm very excited to play. I haven't played yet. And I don't know what happened or what triggered it, but I have been like super excited about playing Pokemon lately, which hasn't happened to me for a long time. So I don't know if I'm going to like play Moon, because I bought that when it came out and like never really touched it. Or I started watching people do some speed runs of Pokemon games, so I might go back and play like, one of the Gen 1 games that I like a lot. But that's been exciting, because I really... Watching people I usually when I watch people speed run a game, it'll be like a very quick game, like Super Mario Brothers.
Like an action game, yeah something where
Sonic
you've got
2,
twitch reflexes.
And you can beat it in 10 minutes or whatever.
Yeah, no, Pokemon ain't like that.
No, I think the world record for Pokemon Yellow is like 2.5 hours or something. So it's really strange to watch, because when you play Mario, you play it quickly. You run, you jump, you try to get to the flagpole. There is absolutely no necessity to play Pokemon quickly. Like, it takes most people, if you're trying to collect them all, it takes like 80 hours, 80 to 100 hours. It is not a game that was meant to be played quickly. So to watch somebody like know exactly how many pixels to go up when they walk into a room, so when they turn right, they'll be aligned with the stair set, like on the other side of the room, without having like upright, That's pretty fascinating. I think I'm going to have to get into some Pokemon on some level pretty soon here. I don't even know if I'm going to finish Wolfenstein. I have a really bad tendency to like, I get into a game, and then once I get used to the story and the aesthetic of the game, I don't have like the sense of satisfaction from like finishing it. I'm just like, yeah, Wolfenstein's cool. I played it a little bit.
Well, most games get bad by the end.
Yeah.
That's something that I've found. It's because they put all their resources into showing a good start, and then maybe they have like one cool encounter towards the end that they were like, all right, if this is like, if it's a really good game,
yeah,
that's really well designed, then someone will have thought like, all right, the player has built up so many skills throughout the game, we want to have one encounter that really tests them. Yeah. It's rare for that encounter to actually be the last encounter of the game. And you're talking about a really great game if a game has that kind of arc to it. Most games are not really great games. Most games have some shining moments of genius, but are not, because it's a game is designed by a huge team. Yeah. And oftentimes the decisions that go into cutting or leaving in a level in a game are not the kinds of decisions you would hope they would be. It's not the thought process you would hope it would be. It's often like, well, we can't make this work. Yeah. Like, we can't make this work before the deadline, so we either need to extend the deadline 6 months, or we need to cut this level. Well, but the entire game depends on that level. Like, the whole fucking story depends on that level. What are we going to do? Make it work.
Yeah.
Just make it work. When you're designing a video game, especially a large-scale video game like a Wolfenstein, you're doing service to forces that are greater than you. You're part of a large team of sometimes hundreds of people, and you just don't have the kind of pull as a lead designer or especially a lead writer whose job is usually cut before the game is finalized and like filled in with random other people. Anyway, I don't know. It's fascinating shit. It is fascinating shit. But yeah, I see what you're saying about video games being bad.
This is off topic, but there's a Facebook page that is it's just called Implying Video Games Are Fun, and just like it just shows shitty things from video games that like are just fucking bad experiences.
Like what? What's a good example of one?
Oh Christ, I don't even know. They'll just like show a game people are really hyped up for, and then they'll show a menu where it's like all freemium. Like,
oh, right. Like, here's the DLC menu from this game. Here, where you can get your microtransactions. Yeah. $99, best value.
That's pretty much it as far as gaming. The only other thing, because this month has just been fucking entirely horror stuff in Wolfenstein. This last weekend, I went to see Gwar in Worcester, which was a lot of fun. I don't have a Ghoul open for them, which is another insanely sweet metal band. That's
really fucking cool.
Yeah. I was actually, they almost like stole the show from Gwar. Yeah. Like it was insane.
Well, like you've seen Gwar several times.
Yeah, this was the fifth time.
You kind of know what to expect.
I've seen them.
I liked your Facebook post of the pictures of you seeing Gwar through time. Yeah, that was sweet.
The first one was 10 years ago. Yeah. I hadn't realized that. Man. I saw them in the summer of 2007.
Yeah.
And then this weekend was the fall of 2017.
Jeez.
I'm old now.
We've come a long way.
Yeah. But that was a lot of fun. I haven't been to a concert, let alone in Worcester, in a really long time. I fucking hate driving to Massachusetts.
I hate it so much.
It's awful.
Mm-hmm. That's some real deep Maine shit for all our Maine listeners. But I'm sure you all agree, driving to Massachusetts sucks a dick.
It sure does.
It S's a B a D's, as some people would say.
3+ hours of just bad highway.
Yeah.
Just
getting worse as you get closer to Massachusetts. It's the trip to Massachusetts is like a very classic fucking journey into hell. Journey into the underworld, journey to the lowlands. Oh, I wonder what indignities will be perpetrated upon me during this trip to Massachusetts.
Man, and let me tell you, there are some, because the two biggest things that I took away from the Gwar show, 3 if you count Ghoul being fucking rad,
4 if you count the paint
yeah.
and bodily fluids.
Gwar, this was the first time I've seen Gwar since their lead singer and last founding member died. And so I didn't really know what to expect, but it was a very good show, and it kind of, I liked their new album with their new singer, their new old singer, however you want to figure that out. But
you crunch those numbers yourselves at home. Go to the Wikipedia page, it's a whole thing.
But I was very impressed with it, and then they were as good as they've always been, and that is kind of what I had hoped for.
Because you love them how they've always been.
I do, and then Ghoul was just, if you've ever listened to their albums, they're such a dynamic band with, like shredding, thrashy guitar solos and many different vocal styles all going on at once. And what I hadn't realized was that for the most part, each one of those different vocal styles is a different member of the band.
Nice.
So to see them live and have it sound exactly like it sounds on the album with, all these different gang vocals, and then all of a sudden it's, one guy who kind of like talk raps, and then the next second it's like brutal death metal gutturals. It was pretty fascinating to watch live. And then I went home, and the very next day I got up to go to the Portland Comic Expo in Portland, Maine, which
I also attended.
Yeah, you know what ruined my plan about that, though? We didn't see each other at the show, and if I saw you there, I was going to have Laura take a picture of us and then say, I ran into Ben from Ben and Curt Till It Hurts at the Portland Comic Expo. That was my big joke. And it
missed opportunities. I'm sorry. We should.
My
phone. I just had my phone on silent, and I wasn't checking it.
Yeah, well, it doesn't.
I'm an asshole.
How dare you be immersed in a fun entertainment?
I know. It was a great show. It was a great show. It was a good show.
We can talk about it a little bit. We're getting about where we want to wrap up.
Yeah. I think this can be our last thing that we talk about, unless you have any other stuff that you want to.
This is about it.
Let's do our con check-in.
So
the Great Con.
We didn't really plan on it very well. We had talked about going, and I said, I don't know, I'm going to be in Worcester the day before. I might be too tired or too broke.
I went with my sister and some of her friends and roommates and stuff.
And I will tell you, before I got to the con, being on the highway driving to Portland, which is not a long drive, was a fucking nightmare after having spent half the day on the highway the day before.
It's the last place you want to be.
That's true. I wanted to be dead.
You're just like flat on the floor, just breathing but barely.
So what are your thoughts on the con? Did you buy anything cool, or do you have any general impressions?
So as soon as I got there at like 1:30, they were doing the Iron Cartoonist challenge, which I had no idea was happening. But as I was walking in, my the person who sold me the ticket was like, "Hey, Iron Cartoonist is starting. They just started. You can still go over." And as I was walking in, I checked my phone. My sister was like, "We saved you a seat." She didn't even say to what or anything. But I was like, oh, fucking Iron Cartoonist, I gotta get back there. It was pretty cool. It was pretty good. It was funny. It was like have you ever seen like an Iron Cartoonist?
No.
It's like Iron Chef.
Yeah.
There's a guy who emceed it. I can't remember any of these people's names, so forgive me. But there was an MC, and he had a bunch of games that were like improv games. He would take suggestions from the audience. It was a lot of kids in the audience, which was cool. And he took a lot of suggestions from kids, which I really enjoyed. Things like who's a famous person, or what's an occupation, what's a location they can be in. And the cartoonists had to draw these characters in these locations doing these things. It was really fun. There was some real creativity on show from these cartoonists. Yeah. Yeah. And after that, I just kind of walked the show floor, You know how that is.
Yeah.
We went to that con 2 years ago, right?
Yep.
We went to the same con 2 years ago, and it was a similar experience. There weren't as many video games.
Yeah.
Which was kind of bogus. There was like one box of NES cartridges, and I rifled through all of them, despite the fact that I wasn't going to buy any, just because I like to look at and touch old video games. Like we talked about fucking last week with fucking Pilot Wings.
Yeah.
That's why I have so much intimate knowledge of video games. It's not even that I play them. I just like to touch them look at them and think about them.
Speaking of Pilot Wings, I think that's actually a new segment I want to work on towards the show. I want to randomly throw video games at you just to see if you can have the same...
Do you have one this week?
No, I don't.
I come up with one. I love this. I'm into this. Finally, we can put this knowledge to use.
Jet Force Gemini.
Jet Force Gemini. Oh, one of my favorite games, Curtis.
Shit.
I love that. You thought you were throwing me some... I have very specific memories of Jet Force Gemini. So the thing about Jet Force Gemini might be my favorite Rareware game. I can't think of one that I like more. Probably when I was a kid, I would have said Banjo-Kazooie I liked more. But Jet Force Gemini is a great shooter. It's like got these labyrinthine levels that you can... It's about as well designed as the old Doom games, I think. because it's really, well, Rareware did GoldenEye, right? And then they did Perfect Dark, two great N64 shooters. And I'm not sure if it was the same people who made Jet Force Gemini, but you can see the same design sensibility at play. You've got these great, like, these lush environments. You've got these fascinating main characters who you switch between, and you can handle levels in different ways depending on which character you bring into it sometimes. There's the fucking dog. The dog is amazing, and it is hard as nails, right? Did you ever beat that game?
I've never even played it, Ben.
You've never even played Jet Force Gemini? Jet Force Gemini, great game. We're going to do a Jet Force Gemini episode. That's a joke at this point. Just anytime I like something. There's this one Mantis boss that I remember. That's one of my most difficult moments in a video game. I don't play a lot of super hard games, I guess. I'm not that great at video games. But
well, plus, I mean, like, something that happens with me, and I don't want to assume that you had the same experience, but I grew up having, like, Nintendo and Super Nintendo and N64 and PlayStation, but I was also growing up as that happened. So I was aware of games like Earthbound and, you know, like, random example, but like, say, like Parasite Eve. But
great game.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
But those weren't the games I was playing. So, like, you know, I don't play
Fear Effect.
I never played that.
You never played Fear Effect?
So a lot of the games I play aren't hard games either, because I was a kid when I played them.
Right.
And sometimes I've gone back, like with Parasite Eve, and I'd be like, man, fucking wish 10-year-old me knew what was up, because
this game's tight.
This game's sick.
Yeah. Like, it's like a Resident Evil game without the Resident Evil layer of it. Jet Force Gemini, really good. What made you bring up Jet Force Gemini?
I literally don't know.
Just random, like your subconscious just pushed out Jet Force Gemini as like, here's an obscure
this
game
is
Ben
just
won't
as
know
interesting
anything
for
about.
me because I just think of whatever game I happen.
This could be a whole other podcast, Curtis. I could do this shit all day. I love it. This gets me hyped up.
Okay, do we have time for one more? Do we have time?
Yeah, sure.
Terranigma.
Terranigma. I know very little about this game.
Okay.
Boy,
this is kind of cheating. This is why this is the
Yeah?
second one.
Okay.
This game was never released in America.
Okay. Was this a Japanese game?
Yeah, but it was one of the...
Was it on PlayStation?
It was on Super Nintendo.
Okay.
And it was one of the greatest RPGs made on Super Nintendo, coincidentally, right before it crapped out, and everybody moved on to disc-based systems.
Right, like the thing you were talking about earlier. Yeah.
And so people have, like, lovingly made an English translation of it. So that was cheating a little bit.
That's why I've heard about it, because that English translation only came out a few years ago, right? Yeah, and I heard about it when that English translation came out, and it looks like a Japanese RPG.
Yeah, so that one was kind of cheating. I won't
Did you ever play it?
I started it, but it's just...
it's such a Japanese RPG, isn't it?
It is, and it's just one of those ones where it's like... They fucking set the mood. You're watching cutscenes of 32-bit graphics. So
yeah. I will admit JRPGs are one of my areas of lowest competence when it comes to games. Maybe platformers are also kind of a low area like really obscure platformers.
We'll throw these in sporadically.
When throughout the week, when you think of a game that's like, man, I wonder if Ben knows anything about this game. Chances are. I do.
The next time I'm thinking about Quest 64, I'll fucking write
Quest 64 is very strange. Quest 64 is that the only JRPG on the Nintendo 64? Well, there's like Paper Mario, which I think barely counts.
I don't think that necessarily counts. I would say it's pretty close. It has to be close because I think in all-encompassing RPGs, there's only like 10 on the N64. Yeah, so I mean, as far as for me is the con, I kind of like have a weird. Maine is very small. And it's growing the con scene, but something that's very different about Maine, and I assume many other smaller states that you're not going to run into in bigger states, is you can't go to like, there's no... Other states have whole cons dedicated to one thing. It'll be like a My Little Pony con, or a fucking Fallout con.
But we're so out of the way up here.
Yeah, everybody turns out for every con. Whether I went to a horror con in Bangor, and the same fucking people were there that are at every single con. So this is the third time I've been to the Portland Comic Expo, and It's a little bit depressing because it's the same exact thing every time. Like, there are minor differences, but I mean, Christ, there are artists that are sitting at the same booths.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like they never left.
Yeah.
We just sit in here, we go into cryo sleep, and they wake us back up when you're ready to come back, Curt.
And
when you're ready to come back and disappoint me.
Yeah.
Oh, moving on again this year, Curt? Okay.
It was so I'm glad you said that because it reminded me too. It was a desperate con too. There were usually, if you're at a really busy, bustling con, you're pretty free to walk around and have people kind of leave you alone. But like I'd be like walking along and someone would be like, hey, what do you like to read? What kind of comics do you read? And I'd be like, Punisher. And you should read this one that I wrote. It's the most like the Punisher I have. It's about a ninja in Japan. Like, how the fuck is that anything like the Punisher? Well, he's an assassin. The Punisher's not really an assassin.
Come on,
That's...
the Punisher's a fucking war damaged soldier. Yeah. Listen to yourself, man. Yeah. Listen to what you're saying.
Have some fucking dignity.
You're debasing yourself here in front of me for a comic book that I'm not even gonna think about buying.
You know, and I almost did. I almost bought it. But then, honestly, like, I'm not just saying this. If you are pushy with me about buying your shit, I will fucking just keep walking. Like, you can be, if you are just like really nice and a conversation strikes up, I'll be like, you know what? Cool, give me it. $10, who cares? Mm-hmm. But if you like are one step shy of grabbing me by the shoulder and pulling me to your table, I'm not buying any.
You don't like the hard sell.
No, not a fan of the hard sell. So highlights are. I bought it's up there, not that anyone else can see, but I bought a reprint of Ninja Turtles issue number 1.
I see it. Oh, very nice.
People from Maine have a pretty good Maine pride hard on for Ninja Turtles. And,
wait a minute, what's the Maine pride?
Kevin Eastman is from
Maine. From Maine? No shit. I didn't know that.
Yeah, he's from. But here's the thing, though. Like, he's from Maine, but
he lived here till he was 6.
No, there's a documentary. Fantastic documentary, even if as far as a well-made documentary about the Ninja Turtles. And he is from Maine, but he also immediately says, I knew if I wanted to do anything, I couldn't fucking do it in Maine.
It's the Anna Kendrick effect. Yeah, Anna Kendrick does the same exact thing. She's from Portland, but she doesn't really talk about it.
Yeah,
she'll say, like, I got out as soon as I could because I knew that if I wanted to act, I couldn't fucking do it there.
That was the Kevin Eastman. He fucking hightailed it to Connecticut as soon as he could, and that's when he was successful.
He was right.
Fucking worked.
Granted,
he met Peter Laird via.
Quentin Tarantino talks about the same thing. He said, I forget where Quentin Tarantino grew up, but he said something like, "I knew that if I wanted to do anything, I needed to get out of Loserville."
Yeah. So I was pretty excited about that. The thing with the Ninja Turtles is that it started kind of small. So they would do like a run of their first issue, and then it would sell out. And because it was such a low budget thing from a New England area, they had a lot of success just reprinting the same issue as their base got bigger and bigger. So that is actually a 5th edition, but it's issue number 1 from the 5th edition in, I think, 1988. So that was pretty cool. And then, do you like Blade of the Immortal?
I don't know what that is.
Is
that another video game? Is this another test?
No.
Are you just going to spring it to me in the middle of other segments?
Yeah, so the thing about Ninja Turtles...
Ben, what do you think about Dune 2?
So I was playing Sonic 2 the other day, and I found myself thinking, what does Ben think about Star Fox?
Not a fan.
I bought... it's just a Japanese graphic novel, and I bought some for...
What is it called again?
Blade of the Immortal.
Blade of the Immortal.
I haven't read any of it. I just picked it up.
Nice title.
But the other only real big thing there was Scarecrow Oven is an art group from, I think it's just one guy, or it might be a group. But he's from Maine, and he's always there, and he has like the fucking coolest art ever.
Did he do that Tremors art that you picked up the other year? Yeah, I saw him. He had a Trick or Treat poster. Yeah. Like the movie Trick or Treat that I really wanted to buy, but I couldn't think of a place I could put it.
I bought his. He made like a trade paperback of his different art that has. He's a pretty successful dude, even being. From
you
Maine.
can look at the art and
you
can tell.
in the art book that I bought, it'll say like what each piece was used for, and like 6 of the designs have been bought by Fright Rags, which is a website that makes horror movie T-shirts and stuff. And so that was pretty cool, and that was really about it for that. I had a pretty good time. It was pretty low key, and you see a lot of the same people.
Yeah.
But
it's like a sense of comfort that you get.
Yeah.
I bought some art as well from an artist named Sarah Capello.
Cool.
Who, like, I had pretty much dedicated myself to not buying anything. I bought a board game also called Hounded. It's pretty good. I played it with my sister once. It's nice. But yeah, I had dedicated myself, like, alright, I guess I'm not gonna buy anything. I thought I had seen everything. I shuffled through the box of video games.
Yep.
And then I smelled a sandwich. And I kind of followed my nose to this table where Sarah Capello was sitting with a young man who was eating a sandwich. And her art is just incredible. Like, she had this great Zelda Breath of the Wild print.
Let's get her on the show.
Yeah, hey, Sarah, if you're listening.
Sarah, I know you're out there.
Sarah, I know you're out there. I have one of your business cards.
I know you're in a weird place right now because you just can't believe Ben and Curt are talking about you right now.
I know. Try to keep it together, okay? But we are going to ask you on the show. But yeah, like, this Breath of the Wild print was just super chill. She had some great Steven Universe stuff going on there that I really dug. And I ended up buying some Steven Universe stuff and the Breath of the Wild print, and just this cool little picture of like a giant animal laying down with some like trees and shit growing off of it.
That's sick.
It was sweet. I loved it. I'm gonna have to show it to you. I'll bring it in, or next time you're over at my place, you can see it. I've got it up on the walls now. Yeah, good con.
Yeah. Good fun. Good. It's only like $5 to get in. It's like a half hour from our house, so it's like
it's like you spend an hour there. You paid $5 to get in. You're gonna have a good time if you're like us.
Yeah,
which maybe you're not.
Hopefully not. Hopefully for your sake, you're not like us.
I wish you the best.
So let's start wrapping this up a little bit.
Yeah. Do we want to start by saying what we're gonna do next time, or
Yes.
what our plans are for the future?
Yeah, let's do that. So.
Hopefully you remember, because I've forgotten.
I do remember, and we're working on a couple things at once. So the big thing is that we have a guest lined up. We haven't had a guest in a while because of Texarcism.
Because no one wanted to touch that shit.
Yeah, and I just didn't want to have to put anybody through that, to be honest.
Yeah.
So we're going to be having a guest. I can't say that it's next week. I got to get in touch with the person.
To be determined.
Yeah. Do we want to say what we're talking about for that episode?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So when that person comes, we are going to be, by their request, this might seem like a strange pair-up, but it was something that they wanted to talk about.
Because it's things that we've mentioned on the show in passing several times.
We're going to be talking about Stranger Things, both seasons, I assume.
Wait a minute. I didn't sign up for that shit.
Both
All right,
absolutely,
okay.
definitely both seasons of Stranger Things.
You're springing this on me, but I can handle it.
And
because of the other thing we'll be talking about.
And the Babadook.
One of my favorite movies.
One of your favorite movies?
That movie rocks.
Ben!
That might be... It's either that or The Witch for my favorite horror movie.
Ben!
Yeah.
The Witch?
Yep. It's that good.
Christ, why'd we start with that?
It's that good.
Okay, moving on.
Anyway, we'll be doing that. That's going to be a fucking death match. Because this guest disagrees with me about Stranger Things and disagrees with you about the Babadook.
Right.
So it's going to be an interesting dynamic. What if I turn out...
three-way.
What if I turn... Yeah, it's going to be... Hell yeah. What if I turn out to love the second season of Stranger Things? What if I'm like, nope, they fixed all my problems?
I hope they do.
I can already tell you what Stranger Things Season 2 is going to be because I've seen advertisements for it,
I haven't seen anything. I don't want to see anything. I don't want to know anything.
It's going to be a rehash of the first season because they don't have to have anything unique because the first season had nothing unique about it. So why would you have anything unique? It's going to be more rehashed 80s nostalgia, which was already nostalgia of middle-aged men about their childhoods in the 50s. So it's going to be a rehash of childhood nostalgia of an era that did not really exist. Of an era that never existed. The America that Donald Trump wanted to bring us back to is what Stranger Things is celebrating. By proxy. By double proxy. Alright? You hear my words.
You literally, right now, are like like in the dramatic scene of a movie where you flip up like the warhead switch and you're flicking all the switches up. And like Donald
Turning
Trump,
it all
Stranger
on.
Things, Babadook. Like, we're going full blast.
I have nothing else to say about the Babadook. You will be proven wrong about the Babadook.
Okay.
Not in so controversial terms, but I really love that movie.
Okay. So start watching Stranger Things a little bit at your own pace.
Grit your teeth.
Watch the Babadook.
Try to watch Stranger Things. Don't watch the Babadook if you're pregnant or have heart problems. It's the scariest movie ever made.
And while you're doing that, I think we're going to do a 2-part series.
Yeah, I think 2 parts is appropriate.
We are going to be talking about a series of albums by Lil Wayne.
Mm-hmm.
We will be discussing the Carter 1 through 4. First, we're going to be doing the Carter 1 and 2 in an episode. No Texorcism shit with this one. It'll be 1 and 2, and then 3 and 4.
We're going to be discussing the Carter 1 along with the first half of Fallout 2.
Yeah. So, work your way through those while you're not watching Stranger Things and the Babadook. And
we'll let you know when we're going to be doing the Babadook and
next week will
Stranger
almost
Things.
Surely be the Carter 1 and 2 because even if that guest is available, I don't think that's enough time to binge all that stuff. So
no, but in hopefully a few weeks, depending on how their schedule goes, we do this every week, and our schedules are pretty wide open. Well, I don't know, mine is.
Yeah, no. Now that Halloween's over, I'm good.
Yeah, yep. So we can do that pretty much any time. I'm excited for that episode.
Me too. So are we ready to wrap this up then?
Let's wrap this thing up.
All right. So, as you guys know, you can listen to more Ben and Curt Till It Hurts and Black Gold Podcast by subscribing to Black Gold Podcast on iTunes and Stitcher. You can also stream it from Buzzsprout or YouTube. If you're a listener of the show, please give us a rating or drop us a review on iTunes. It helps the show a lot, and we really appreciate it. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at CurtCake5K, and I think that's going to do it. If I didn't mention before, you guys, even though Halloween's over, should go check out my Horror Hound series I did, because it was a lot of work and a lot of fun, and a lot of cool guests that I don't get to have very often, so check that out. We will be back next week to talk about the Carter 1 and 2, and we'll be working towards that Stranger Things and Babadook episode.
And Jake, I look forward to your fan mail.
Every week.
Every week.
All right, bye, guys.
Bye.
Is it the Babadook?
You can say it either way. It's onomatopoeic. It's a sound that it makes. So I always